Thank you for joining. Intimate Conversations with Men was created to bring solutions, stories, and much more. And today, I'm very inspired to have a very special guest. Nima Rahmany is a leading expert in shadow work. Have you ever heard of shadow work? Because we're going to learn a lot today. Emotional regulation and healing attachment wounds. Attachments, the word that everybody's using. After a successful career as a chiropractor, he left the profession to dive deep into the realm of trauma, healing, and relationship transformation. Driven by his own journey of overcoming toxic patterns and becoming trigger-proof. Ooh, have you ever heard that concept? We're going to learn about that today. Nima now helps high achievers, patterns, and professionals break free from cycles of codependency and self-abandonment. Self-abandonment, I love that word. Through his signature program, the Overview Experience, and his expertise in somatic attachments, healing, nervous system regulation, and shadow work, Nima empowers clients to stop reacting on autopilot and start creating lives and relationships filled with authenticity, connection, and purpose. With over 2 decades, over 20 years, of experience in mind-body healing and a mission to help others break generational cycles of trauma. Wow. Nima's work is transformational as is reliable. He's engaging storytelling. I love stories. And more is helping clients to transform the world. Let's please help me welcome Nima Rahmany. Nima!
Good to be here, my dear Elena. Thank you.
Welcome. I have so many questions. I'm curious about your signature program.
Yeah. I used to call it the Overview Experience, but now I call it the Trigger-Proof Experience.
Oh, I see.
It's actually tomorrow. I'm doing it tomorrow. The recording of the day that we're recording this tomorrow. So it's a 6-hour event. What it was is formerly a 3-day event that people would fly in. I would do it all over the world, where I teach people how to transform whatever conflict that they're going through. It's really about, I just wanted to teach people what I never learned, which was conflict management, repair from conflict within relational dynamic. And as a chiropractor, I saw patients coming in to see me with all sorts of stress-related problems. But when you ask them when it began, it was usually on the other side of an emotional conflict. So I thought, am I really helping these patients if I'm not teaching them how to repair from conflict? So the Overview Experience, which is now called the Trigger-Proof Experience, was education that I never received on how to repair conflict, because we're carrying unresolved conflict in our bodies that creates disease, that creates attachment wounds, that creates our reactivity, everything that you're reacting to through the day, whether it's your kid or whether it's your partner's pushing you away with distance or constantly you're people pleasing, that is coming from an unresolved wound. So I was doing these 3-day events, and then when COVID hit, I said, can I turn this into a 6-hour Zoom event? And I did. And it worked so well, and it made it so affordable for people to come, that I just kept going. It's now been, consistently every month I do the Trigger-Proof Experience, and I take people through the nervous system regulation and rewiring our conflicts that we've been carrying in our bodies, in our nervous system, so that we can feel a sense of freedom, a lightness, and an openness towards what we once perceived as being so challenging in our lives.
So when you said conflict, Are you speaking of the conflict we perceived that we had with somebody else or with ourselves?
When people come in to see me, they're usually dealing with a conflict
Okay.
in their lives. Parent, child, spousal, co-workers. So it really is the conflict, the friction between two people in the space between them. And through the process of the trigger-proof experience, we get to see that the real conflict is the one within ourselves.
What
So it's
made
always
you?
both happening simultaneously.
So you had a career as a chiropractor. And by the way, I love chiropractors. I think they're the doctors of the soul.
It can be, for sure.
It can be, yeah. And then from there, you went into creating all this program. And when you see the mind-body connection, what made you go from one thing, from a career that you successfully had, into this other thing that goes deeper into the mind and the body, the mind connecting with the body?
Yeah. Well, patients coming in to see me, I ask them, how long have you been dealing with this? And they say 6 months. Then the next question is, well, what happened 6 months ago in your life? And they will all say, well, I went through a divorce, or I lost my grandfather, or I lost a pet. There's some sort of a conflict or an attachment rupture that predated the symptoms in their body. And I thought, okay, well, I can work on their physical body and adjust their spine and help remove the interference in the nervous system. But am I really helping them if I'm not going upstream to the root cause of the attachment wound? And so I started creating these workshops in 2009 in my clinic called Life Skills for a Stressful World. And so all of my patients are invited to attend this Saturday morning thing. They would come, and then I would teach them the tools of managing the stresses that they're dealing with so that they can look and perceive their challenges in a different way. And when they did that, their health started to improve. Their outcomes were much better in the clinic. And so at one point I was like, you know what? I'd rather just be doing this. There's magic in this. So in 2013, I made a declaration and I said, you know, I love being a chiropractor, but I really love teaching people how to become their own medicine even more. And I'm making a declaration that I want to do this exclusively. And it took about 2 years. And then I got that knock on the door, and that knock on the door came in the form of a driver's license that was suspended because of too many speeding tickets. And so now I'm facing the problem of the fact that I can't drive to work. It's going to cost so much to drive to work. It's not even worth it. So I gave all my patients to my associates, and then I reached out to my friends all around the world, and we created little workshops of the overview experience, trigger-proof experience, in my friends' clinics around the world, in London, in Detroit, in Atlanta, in Ottawa, in Sydney, Australia. And as I would go to these places, things would start to evolve, and it grew from there. And then, you know, long story short, I sold my practice, and then I moved exclusively into teaching this to anybody who was ready.
Are you able to give me an example of a time that you help a client? What was the initial conflict, as you call it, and what occurred after that?
So one that comes to mind is, it's usually two problems that people are dealing with. Is the experience of should I stay or go? That experience of should I stay or go in this relationship is a real big conflict, because at what point is staying here, is it worth it? Is this relationship salvageable because they're not changing? And I need clarity. Is this the right relationship for me? And simultaneously, while this one woman, Jasmine, was dealing with that, should I stay or go? She was anxious. He was avoidant. She wanted changes. He wasn't. She's like, I need to break free from this. While at the same time, she was dealing with a experience because she was working in the prison system in Australia, helping violent offenders. And she was kind of like a counselor for them. And she she loved what she did, but she hated working in the system. So this was what she was going to counseling, and then her counselor, for some weird reason, her counselor suggested she look at my content. And so she reaches out, we get on a call, and she decides, all right, I want to work on really getting clarity of this should I stay or go scenario. And what we did was, the work I do is at the level of identity, because when you're in a should I stay or go scenario and you don't know if this is the right place for you, the answer isn't going to come from, trying to weigh the positives and the negatives. It comes from deciding who you're going to be. It's an identity level shift of, I want to be a woman or a man or whoever, where you are, that is chosen fully by a partner who is emotionally responsible, who doesn't invalidate her, doesn't gaslight her, who truly feels emotionally met. And so that's what she decides. And as she makes that decision, she starts making changes. I get a call from the partner, and he decides he wants to join the community and start doing the work. But I think he started doing it because she kind of started growing and he started to feel threatened to leave. So what happens is, when someone takes on the work in a couple dynamic, the other person starts to notice that their self-worth is going up, which is what happened with her. Her self-worth started going up, and that triggers the abandonment wound in the other person. So either they rise to meet you there, which then answers the question of stay, or they don't. And that answers the question of go, which is what happened. She decided it was time to kind of part ways, which she's never done before, because she was always anxiously attached and waiting to be chosen. She developed the self-worth to be able to move on. Now, something really neat happened shortly after. She then, when she decided that, something shifted in her and said, I really don't want to be working in this prison system anymore, and I want to start to teach people on my terms. So then I asked her, I said, what needs to change within you? And she said, I need to get complete with these aspects of myself that I feel are shameful. And it turns out that in her past, she used to be an exotic dancer. So she was carrying a lot of shame around that. Excuse me. So she was carrying a lot of shame around that. And as we worked together to really what's called integrate those shadow parts, those darker parts that you kind of like, the shadow is this part of yourself that you want to shove into the corner. We brought them to light, and she felt through all the shame, and she learned how to really appreciate those parts. She started developing even more self-worth, and then burned the bridge with the system. And now she's coaching and teaching private clients the way that she wants, not someone else's curriculum. And coincidentally, through the process, I was working with another guy who was going through a breakup, and he's in Italy. She's in Australia, and she was going to Italy to do a Taekwondo thing. And I said, you know what? There's another guy that I've been working with. He's great, and he's healing from his divorce, and I'm working through that. Should I stay or go? And he's in a go. And I think you guys would really make a great couple. No, I think you guys would really hit it off. And she's like, okay, I'm open. So that was back in October. She goes there and they meet up, and they fell in love, and they've been together ever since. And so it's now like, 6-7 months of a relationship. And so what a transformation. They both left their partners. She's upgraded her work, and now she's in a relationship with an emotionally mature man who takes full responsibility for his own side of the street and meets her emotionally where she's at. And this was everything that she wanted when we first started working together.
I love your story, but I noticed that you're a little bit of a matchmaker there too.
I'm not, but it just came through, and I was like, oh, you're going to Italy. Why don't you go talk to, Fabio is his name. Why don't you go talk to Fabio? I think you guys would hit it off. And all of a sudden I was like, wait, is this a potential matchmaking business that I should get into? Like, I didn't charge for that. Like, how many people, like, Elena, Elena, I guarantee you, if I had a list of men who've done the work, you would be like, I want to meet these guys who've done the work. Well,
I don't think I'm the only one.
women are hungry for men who are self-reflective, right? So matchmaking might be something down the road that I look into. Who knows?
Since you went on that route, let me ask you a question. In your perception, because this specific podcast is about men well-being, but this is absolutely affecting women. So what is that actually men mature and responsible, emotionally responsible? By the way, responsibility or responsible is my one of my 2 words of 2026. Interesting you said that. And I was speaking yesterday about we need to be responsible, or we want to be responsible for our emotions and our actions, right?
Yeah.
What is that really men look for? Because women constantly, we are looking for the right match, the right partner.
Yes.
What is that we need to do as women? And I know you give a little bit of that, but I want to specifically ask a question. And what is that the men look for? Responsible, emotional responsible men look for in women.
Great question. And so men and women have different things that make them valuable. Okay. And we all have a masculine part of us, feminine part of us. But
correct.
The masculine, when a woman looks at a man and she gets turned on by this one thing called containment. Containment this is something that I didn't have in my last relationship, which ended up becoming all about sex, and there was violence in it. And so it was because I was lacking what's called containment. Containment of what? Men, we have this instinctual in our id, in our animal nature, has ties to aggression and sexuality. There are 2 wolves in every man. That's aggressive and sexual. And so, the society has tried to suppress them, right? But in a healthy man, a woman doesn't want a man who's completely passive, right? Has no chance of any type of aggression. A woman wants a man who has that drive and impulse of aggression and sexuality.
Yes.
But they want that the man contains it. Contains it how? Well, we contain it with one person. We contain our leaky sexual energy with checking out other girls, thirst traps on the internet, texting. When a woman sees a man is not able to contain his aggression and sexuality, she does not feel safe. But when a woman observes that a man has that nature within him, he's got this sexual drive, he's not like completely, he's got this life force energy, this sexual charge that's there. He's got this aggressive side that can potentially harm, which is protective of the tribe, of the child, of the family, of the empire. But he's learned how to contain it. That's what makes him super duper attractive to a woman. The flip side for women is what makes a man turned on by a woman is what's called discernment. That's why men ask about body count, because if a woman doesn't have discernment, that means that she doesn't boundary who she lets in. She just lets in, she'll date anybody. She'll sleep with anybody. There's no standards there, right? And so when a woman has developed the self-worth, then she has a velvet rope around her energy of who she lets into her energy, her body, her sexuality. And so self-worth that's developed within a woman creates what's called discernment. So for men, masculine in polarity, masculine is all about developing containment, which is boundarying your energy so that your aggressive and sexual wolves inside of you that we all have, we're born with, are learned how to be directed in the right place. I'm married. I direct it towards my wife. My aggression is directed in the gym or in taekwondo or boxing class, right? You have a place where you're expressing it. You're not suppressing it. And for women, it's that discernment, which is the boundaries of who she lets in. So it's developing the standards. So this is what makes men attractive to women and what makes women attractive to men.
I love that. And I have more questions about that. Thank you.
Sure. Go for it.
So, you went again. You're speaking some language that I'm more curious. There, masculinity and femininity. The word there's a word that runs wild for men, and misused and overused, which is narcissistic.
Yeah.
Part of that is, or toxic, the perceived toxic man because he's too aggressive. So as a leader, as a masculine, having that masculine energy, part of that, men have the need to and I know you speak about contentment, right? Has the need to express that aggression, not necessarily is because it's toxic. It's necessary, but the label has been so over and misused that it's quickly just labeled as he's being a narcissistic.
Toxic masculinity,
Correct.
narcissist. Yeah. What that is an example of uncontained masculine energy. Uncontained masculinity feels unsafe. That's essentially what it is, right? It feels unsafe to the woman, right? And so there's a line, of course. And we're talking about boundaries, right? So around my wife, I could make some jokes and she laughs because she's raised with brothers and she just thinks, oh, that's funny. But around somebody else, that would be offensive. And that becomes an example of a person's boundaries, right? So a person's boundaries of what they let in. So if somebody has really weak, kind of like a really soft center, a deep vulnerability, and they haven't developed protective boundaries around it, things out there, behaviors feel unsafe. So everybody's perception is different, right? So yes, you're right. It's being overused like aggression, sexuality, it's toxic masculinity. And to a certain degree, it's true. I mean, when you look at like the manosphere, all of these really angry, bitter, victim-y men who are trying to, just like they're essentially misogynist. They see women as very small. They're wounded. Right. So because of that wound, they're projecting all of this negative perception of misogyny to women. And similarly, on the other side, the ones who say toxic masculinity, men are toxic, all of my exes are narcissists. This comes from a wound that's projected onto all men are this and that. So there's a lot of healing to be done. And I want to be part of the solution to that.
I love that, Nima. Thank you. Thank you for the service to humanity, by the way. For those men who are right now listening to this conversation, a lot of men, they are amazing. They have amazing record on paper. But inside, they're broken. They're in pain. And they're absolutely terrified that anybody finds out. They live a life of pretending. As they do great and be admired in their profession, they try to hide deeply, regardless if they're in an actual relationship of marriage or romantic relationship with a woman. But because of the fear of the world knowing what they're really, and the shame that they have of seeing themselves as broken and vulnerable.
Yeah.
What is something, if they're listening, what is something they can do? A baby step. Give me a baby step to start the process to having a more fulfilling life and self-relationship.
Question. Okay. So I want to introduce you to this concept that I'm putting together. It's in my trigger-proof model, is that successful people, men, We are conditioned to see our sense of self-worth, myself included, on our success. So we start to develop this one side of our reality I call the green circle. Success, money, platform, validation, approval from people, physical body, big muscles, nice car, a nice head of hair, you name it. All the things that men spend their time, effort, energy, and money to that defines a man to be worthy. Okay? Now, unfortunately, what we don't learn in school is that this green circle is what we develop because we have this red circle on this side that feels shame, that feels rejected, that feels unworthy, that feels embarrassment, right? Failure. There are parts of us that were wounded, that weren't picked in school, that got dumped by the girl, that were never chosen for the sports team, that was, physically abused, sexually abused by our family, caregivers, beaten the crap out of by an older brother, whatever it is. Deep down, this shadow is there, which I call the red circle. And so what we do is, as men, we think, all right, the more I can build my green circle, maybe that red circle shadow part of me is going to go away. But what I discovered, Elena, is that the bigger my green circle got, the more money, the more acclaim. I became a doctor, and I was like, maybe that's going to get rid of that. The bigger my green circle got, the bigger my shadow got. And so the answer is to take a pause, find the right guide and the community to stop focusing on the chasing of the more and to turn towards the red circle, to the shadow part of us that feels unworthy, and address it head on and do what Carl Jung calls integrate it, which means to bring those parts of you, to have them feel seen, to feel understood, to bring compassion and empathy to those younger parts of you that you shoved in the corner, and you started developing this green circle so that you didn't have to feel it, and it doesn't go away. So the more successful you become, the bigger the red circle gets. And that's where we have the color. This is what happened in my case. I kept building it and building it. It wasn't sustainable. My nervous system just popped, and my relationship became abusive. We were both abusive to one another, but I became physically violent, and I had to wake up and go, what the heck's going on? And I realized that I built an entire identity in the green circle to run away from my shadow.
Oh, you woke up.
Good wake-up call.
A wake-up call. I love wake-up calls. All right. So when a man is trying to express his healthy masculinity, and it's not well perceived by a woman, because we are in a world right now with mixing all the feminine, masculine, and women wanting to take very masculine roles, but in a very masculine way. And therefore,
polarized for sure. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm going to give you a simple example. A man opening the door, and I have been told this many times, and the women say, what do you think, that I don't have hands? And this is just,
Yeah.
What happens when a man, what happens when a man is trying to express, and by the way, this is actually hurting our men, because then now they're challenged to do that with the next woman, and the next woman might perceive something different.
Yeah.
What can you tell these men who are expressing their healthy masculinity, but is not well received by females?
Yeah, I mean, case-by-case basis is I'll hold the door open. I'll say, after you, I will make that offering. And if she gets offended to it, then that's okay. Be it anyway. Don't let what I would say to them is, you're not expressing your inherent masculinity to get an outcome. You're doing it because it's an expression of who you are. So when I offer it to you and you're not willing to receive me, that's not about that. I don't make that mean anything about me. That is a statement of where that person is at and where their boundaries are. And it's a great signal to not offer my provision. Provision is a providership, whether I hold the door open or I give hugs or I give advice. I'm a provider because I'm a man. I'm a provider. And so I don't, and this is about me working into my feminine side so that I can become discerning of who I provide for. So this provision doesn't just go for to anyone. It goes to someone who is respectful and grateful for my provision. So I don't just give it freely.
So discernment also works toward men.
Correct.
But
The feminine part of the feminine part
Yourself.
of us. Yeah. It's like, I have this amazing gift, but I'm not just going to give it to anyone. It's got to be somebody who I'm aligned with, who's grateful for and recognizes the value of it. Right. When I take my wife out for dinner, she still looks at me in the eye and goes, "Thank you for dinner." Right. And I love providing for her because she receives gratefully. The second somebody does not receive gratefully my provision, I cut them off. And but that doesn't change who I am. It gives me a good idea of discernment of who gets my magic, who gets to receive my magic.
Tell me about self-abandonment.
Yeah. Self-abandonment was the biggest revelation that I made in my healing journey after I was doing all the cognitive work, John DeMartini work, and I was discovering that why was I getting triggered in my relationship? Why was it that every time she would say this or she would get in front of me and, and to constantly criticize me, why is it that I would react so harshly? And I realized that as a child, in order for us to belong, if we had thoughts, feelings, behaviors, emotions that our caregivers disagreed with, it was a question of survival for me to abandon my own needs and desires so that I can adopt what I perceived would help me belong to my caregivers. So in my case, if I had any type of upset emotions, or I was displaying a challenge, or when a child has a tantrum, that's actually a panic attack, right? My parents didn't have emotional regulation, just like most of our parents didn't have these.
Yeah.
And so when they would react, the child does not think, oh, my parents are really dysregulated and it's not about me. No. The child believes it must mean that I am not good enough. I'm not enough. And that primitive self-abandonment is a form of survival as a child. The problem is we get it hardwired in throughout our childhood so that by the time we hit teenage years, we want to abandon ourselves so that we can fit in. And this experience of I must abandon myself in order to belong, in order to be loved, in order to get my needs met, we develop an identity that abandons themselves in every moment. And what I discovered is that every time we get triggered, we then make a meaning out of the experience that I'm not enough, which is self-abandonment. So becoming trigger-proof is all about rewiring self-abandonment.
Which means every time that you have a trigger, it's not going to go into the same habits and that you were once you reach to that point.
Yes, the idea is that we react differently. This is the goal of all growth work is, you could read all the books and podcasts, but are you still reacting the same? Or are you responsible?
Definitely.
The ability to respond, response able, you responding differently to that experience. So the whole idea is to change the step in the dance. And the only way to do that is to expand that space between stimulus and response. So the trigger proof methodology, which is regulate, integrate, and then communicate, those three kind of frameworks, helps us respond from the adult self rather than from the child self.
Would you be able to help me help the audience understand what is the difference between an individual who is emotionally responsible and one that is emotionally non-responsible?
Yeah. If you and I get into an argument and I say, you made me feel this way, you hurt me, you did that, or all of a sudden, you and I are in a conversation, you ask me a question about my past, and all of a sudden I get triggered. When that activation happens within me, it's happening inside of me. If I don't have the skills to be able to self-soothe and to be able to see what's happening inside of me, I become the reaction. And then I look across the screen and I see this woman who asked me the question that created this. And then I say, Elena, you're the one that made me feel this way. That's being emotionally irresponsible. The emotionally responsible version would be, you ask me the question, because you have a show, you have a question, and immediately that question brings up something in me. And in that moment, I can pause and then I can go, Elena, when you asked me that question, it brought up a lot of shame within me. I'm feeling a lot of shame since you asked that question. And it's making me really uncomfortable, and it's brought up a lot of shame. Can we pause here, or can we come back to it a little bit later so that I can process it properly?
I love
See the difference?
Yes.
See the difference? The
Yes.
first one, I blamed you for what happened
Make me
inside of me.
responsible. You make me take
The
responsibility.
first
for
one,
your
I blamed you for what happened. The second one, the trigger-proof kind of version is, oh, you just asked a question. You're not trying to hurt me. The shame was mine. The activation was happening inside my body. Let me take responsibility for it, and let me get back to you on that because I'm processing it. I don't want to make this about you. I really want to see what came up for me, and then let's chat about it later.
God, I love that. I love
See
that
the difference?
very much.
And I believe that we didn't have that from our parents. My mom and dad, till this day, don't have the capacity, because when they feel uncomfortable, immediately it's because, we did something to them. We were disrespectful to them. In other words, we don't have a right to our own experience. And that fracture destroys relationships. We all want healthy relationships, and we think they fall from the sky, but nobody takes the time to learn the skills of expanding that space, becoming emotionally responsible, so that we can then see two people as individuals rather than play the victim to one another because we don't know what to do about the sensations that come up in our body when we get activated.
You just destroyed my fantasy that my partner is going to fall from the sky. So that's the that
Everybody has that fantasy. I'd rather work with people who are like, look, I'm ready to break free from that. I want to become that safe person for that ideal. I want to become a safe, magnetic individual for that high-level individual as well. I want to become magnetic to them. And that person and I are going to be emotionally responsible and work together as a team to co-regulate and maintain polarity. Even after having children. This is what my commitment is with my wife, is that I'm the man, she's the woman.
Ooh, I love that.
We're both emotionally responsible, and we are a team to raise our son in an environment that where he learns repair. So I'm creating this ecosystem in my home where the home is a sanctuary, not a battlefield. And this, Elena, is what makes a woman really magnetic to a high value man, is the power of her own emotional regulation. without suppressing it, without pretending. That doesn't mean she never cries. It means she's able to cry and access the vulnerable tears. That is like so attractive to healthy masculine men, is women who are able to demonstrate their vulnerability without blaming a man. Like, that's a skill that I really am committed to making sure women who love high value men learn.
Nima, I love what you're saying, and I perceive that there's a huge need of this balance between men and women, and it'll be a great service to humanity. What you're committed, you're inspiring me, and I want to tell you that this space will be. I will give you a key here. You know how people have key of the cities? I'll give you a key of my podcast to come back and express and have a conversation with me every time you want to express something.
You bet. Love to.
You spoke, actually, in many, many conversations I had with men. When they were younger, when they were 5, 6 years old, they were learned to suppress their emotions.
Yeah.
And they grew up knowing that that was not an option because there will be a girl, or their manhood will stop being a man. How is specifically the partner of someone who is struggling to express and talk about what they're feeling is able to help a man?
So what I'm hearing you ask is, like, how can a woman support a man who is having difficulty in expressing his emotions? Is that right?
Correct.
This is a tough one, Elena, because you can do all of the right things and say, hey, I'm here, I'm ready. But if he within himself doesn't have that emotional safety to express, because it's shoved in his shadow, he was kind of punished or shamed or beaten for having emotions, and he stuffs them away, it's very difficult for him to access them because he's shoved them away. And a lot of the work I do with men as well is helping them. I literally help them gain access to those vulnerable parts. I help them make contact to their vulnerability.
Which is necessary.
Men have been conditioned to hide their vulnerability. So a woman coming up and saying, hey, share, like, on one hand, they say that. On the other hand, the feminine kind of gets turned off by a man who expresses his emotions. So men feel kind of duped by, like, oh, she wants me to express. Then he expresses, and then she's like, oh my God, I'm so not attracted to him anymore. So what I would do as a woman is I would work on what arises within yourself when he's not expressing, and do not try to coach him out of it, because it's going to destroy the polarity between you. You're going to turn into his mother. And are you open to some kind of like reflection that I'm kind of feeling here with you?
Of course.
Okay. You are such a healer, and you are such a wonderful maternal type of individual that you want to help men, and everybody has broken parts to them. So if you were to start dating and then start to see, with all the knowledge that you have, and start to see the man talking about what problem he has, you run the risk of shifting into therapist, coach, mother role, and that will destroy the polarity in the relationship. And you will have a tough time in long-term relationships in that identity. So you're going to have to work on, when he's having emotions, what's arising within you, this tendency for you to fix, that's got to get rewired if you really want to call in the higher level man.
I appreciate that. Actually, part of my journey has been not to rescue anyone, including my family members. This I have but appreciate that. And yes, you're absolutely
Cheers
right.
to you on that journey, my
Thank
dear.
you. No, yeah, no.
And I reflect that for you.
My family members have to actually ask. I can see them falling apart, but they have to ask. But thank you. And yes, I'm not. Thank you for that. I appreciate. I love men, but I was thinking about. Well, I asked a question, and you said before, self-regulating ourselves as women is going to help them to feel more comfortable expressing themselves. And number one, and number two, I hear a lot of complaints about men, how while they express their emotions, they are punished for that. They're afraid of that.
Yep.
So we definitely have to work in ourselves as women to support that.
Yep.
I have more
Sure.
questions.
I'm here.
But I know we don't have much time left. So I have this thing. Actually, I want to do the fire rapid questions, and I'm not going to do them all because I want to invite you back and have more questions for you. I want to talk more about your program, about this. These subjects are very important, and this is what I'm looking for because, I want to see this podcast making a difference in the audience, and they wanting to know more about experts like you.
Sure.
Thank you for being just generous with your answers. So are you ready for some rapid fire questions?
For it.
I don't even have a list in front of me, so I'll go by memory. I say one or two words and you answer whatever you say. But once we finish, I want to ask you to give it your wisdom. So you're going to have the opportunity to say something else, but not as a question, more about giving a statement. All right, here we go. Transformation.
Identity shift.
Society.
Society?
Society.
The collective wounding.
AI.
A powerful tool.
Social media.
Used for that can be used depending on the person using it.
Social media.
Another tool that can be connecting or destructive, both connecting and destructive at the same time.
Family.
Family is the blueprint of our nervous system imprint.
Husband.
Provider and protector.
Wife.
Receiver and nurturer.
Father.
Leader. Spiritual leader.
Manhood.
The process of understanding your role within family and society.
Pornography.
An expression of an uncontained shadow.
Polygamy.
A preference for people who like to complicate their lives.
Love language.
A tool for understanding each other.
God.
Infinite awareness.
The mind.
The mind is stories that make infinite awareness really interesting.
The physical body.
The container for energy and the expression of life.
Monogamy.
A spiritual practice.
Wealth.
The tapping into infinite abundance.
I love that. Sex.
Spiritual and material connection of life force energy designed to carry forward the species and connect.
Conversation.
A tool for intimacy.
Intimacy.
The ability to take off the mask and be seen.
Authenticity.
To expose transparently who you are.
Identity.
Who you really are, who you think you are.
Leadership.
Enrolling others in a possibility for themselves and the world.
And last but not least, love.
Love is the universal solvent that's in the background of everything that we can either tap into or forget that we're there.
It's a choice, huh? Love is a choice. Again, you have the keys to come back, but I will continue to invite you. I love what you're saying. And I know that when we go into teaching, the journey never stops. We continue to learn more things. So therefore, I know you will bring refresh and new things every time you come back. So, Nima, give us your wisdom.
The final piece of wisdom that we want me to share
Yes.
is the highest, something that came to me in a dream is, as far as wisdom goes, is that the highest form of forgiveness that we're trying to seek is the authentic recognition that everything served and that there is nothing to forgive.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you for being such a generous guest and gracious guest. And I look forward to another conversation.
I look forward to that, my dear.
For those of you who enjoy this interview, remember, identify who you are, look at what you want, and start working on that. See if you want to stay, if you want to leave, but most importantly, work on your own self so you can have the answer. Thank you. And away we go. Yes.
I do want to say, for people to really understand where to begin, I created a little quiz. My team will put that in the show notes for you to help you to provide that.
Yes.
The best place to start is to really understand your attachment style. So I created a quiz that helps you expose that. And so I provided the link in the show notes for you.
Nima, where can we find you? Do you have the name of your website?
Yeah, becometriggerproof.com. Yeah,
I love that. Triggerproof.
Find me on Instagram, Nima Rahmany Official. And Nima Rahmany, I'll give you all the links that should be in the show notes for sure. Everybody who wants to reach out.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of us will reach out to you.
Beautiful.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for being here, and we'll connect soon again.